Yeah, I'm here as well, but
Okay. All
please,
right. Can you
Wesley.
hear
Yeah.
me? All right. First, peace to the God.
Peace to the God.
Peace to all the family, man. I've been waiting for this night for a while too. It's a long time coming. It's power packed. I got my notebook and my pencil, man, because I come not only to present but to be edified. Because every time I listen to the peers, I am edified, man. Y'all have been dropping the valuable jewels since I've known you.
Likewise.
On various subjects, and this subject is no different. So, man, I'm here to listen, learn, and to make my contribution as Allah wills it. But you're gonna see my notepad is gonna be dense with comments.
Indeed. Nah, that's what's up, man. I don't know if we've ever did a lecture together on this topic per se, the hip hop thing.
Right.
I don't know if we've ever formed Voltron to do that and whatnot. But yeah, here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. It makes sense.
Now we did something in Baltimore, right?
We did.
We did something in Baltimore.
Man, and I remember the year too. It was 2019, right before C19.
Okay.
It was December 2020. The good brother Jabari,
Shout out to brother Jabari.
Yeah, and that was
that was the teaser for this.
That was the teaser. We was inside of a church turning over.
Yes, sir.
You know, that was one of those lectures where I was like, yo, this one right here, we could keep this thing going. We could take this on the road and whatnot.
Absolutely.
So, you know, the world shut down, a lot of things changed. We're a completely new timeline from that day and whatnot, but here we are. And, you know, something that we are very passionate about, which is our culture, is on trial. And, you know, we are the lead prosecutors leading that charge. So it's almost like what we were doing in Baltimore, like you said, that was like the preliminaries. That was yeah. So this is the big trial, you know,
because we now live in the fullness of time regarding this subject. See, so much is being manifest, so much is coming out. So what we put out in the atmosphere then that some people were skeptical, incredulous about, right now, facts are sprouting. The grass is sprouting to an extent where you can't help but bear witness.
That part, like you say, that part. You feel me? Like, yes, that is exactly how I see it. Even to the point where I would like to revisit that.
Yes, sir.
Because of the simple fact that, man, you know, there were seeds planted that night, you know, and I would definitely want to revisit the prophetic, implications of that lecture and whatnot. So
I agree. I agree.
Thank you for reminding me about that, man.
Nah, that was dope, but this is doper.
That part. That part.
Indeed.
Blue, what's good with you, my brother?
Brother, I am heavily anticipating this evening, and we are finally here. So it feels like such a relief, but the anticipation is just staggering. Because as you said, this is something that we're passionate about. This is something that we have strived towards, not just this presentation, but to be able to present alongside Wesley, because he is the preeminent scholar in our community, and we have strived, you know, when the message went out that scholarship needed to be stepped up in this community, you know, we made no comment. We just kept our head down and got, you know, attempted to get better at what it is that we do as a representation of community and of our brand, and, you know, and of the narrative. You know, we all lived in the narrative, grew up in the narrative, My career started as a hip hop journalist out of a love and a passion to tell a story that wasn't being told when I was a consumer of hip hop media. And, now we are at a place in time where everyone is a mini reporter to an extent, but there's so many nuances. And that doesn't mean that my perspective is any better than anyone else's. It's just,
So with that being
I just
said,
kept notes for
we'll do
40
Q&A afterwards, and we'll also take a mid break for water, bathroom, and things of that nature. Tuck little Timmy in, right? And that probably will be at the 3-hour mark. So without any further ado, I want to present to you our good brother, none other than Blue Pillar.
Yeah. I'm taking notes too. I got
You got the scroll. You got a holy scroll.
Not only do we got the, he got the scroll with the infinity stones. Right?
I'm taking the notes in the holy scrolls because this is, to me, and I said this on our show and afterwards, I hope that scholarly work comes out of this. I hope that this is treated like the dissertation that it is, like standing up to the oppressor, really being the underdog, not as Trump presents himself to be the underdog. You can't be the underdog with 4,000 nukes behind you. You know what I'm saying? And the GDP of $30 trillion. That ain't too much of an underdog, right? He's looking to reestablish the brand of quote unquote, Caucasians only represent 6% of the world population. And the variant that he represents maybe is 3%, if not smaller than that. So he's looking to reestablish that brand and bring that brand back under the guise of what he's speaking about with America. But he's speaking specifically to white American males and that particular brand, right, who has received indelible blows to their psyche based on what they have been going through, right? Those years prior. So we got Ibrahim or what have you, who's given us the counterbalance to what that looks like. You feel me? And, for some of us, we like, yeah, this is a man's man. We get it. This particular article is somewhat critical. We could tell kind of who wrote this. It says, as insurgency intensifies and civic space shrinks in a West African state, a different kind of battle is unfolding online where AI-generated images, deepfake anthems, and algorithmic fervor have turned the young military leader into a digital messiah. The face of Captain Ibrahim Traore has been beamed across social media feeds throughout West Africa and from posters and placards hoisted in the streets of Burkina Faso's capital. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. His image appears in various forms. Sometimes he seems stoic in military fatigues, other times draped in Pan-African flags or depicted as a divine warrior glowing with a celestial light, right? So they hating, you know what I'm saying? They hating at the same time. They want to propagate and promote Trump as a messiah. So why can't online propaganda do the same for a melanated leader, right? And we also showed that this coincidentally came out with this challenge that I think came out of nowhere about 100 men versus a gorilla, right? And that was just the West pumping up and getting ready for a military campaign to go back on the continent. Why it can't be 100 men versus a polar bear? That's more like it. Why can't it be a gorilla? Like, we want to wild out, right? So again, politics wants to get rid of consciousness. Battle rap wants to get rid of consciousness. And the hip hop industry and its handlers want to get rid of consciousness. Because when consciousness is on the scene, this is the only deterrent to full-fledged niggerism. Right? And this is the way that I explain niggerism. Niggerism is a default defense mechanism. It's almost like Bruce Banner turning into the Incredible Hulk, right? It's a default. You bring it out when you need to, for reasons that are specific, then you put it back and you go back to what you're doing. But now it's almost like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, and people is Incredible Hulk all the time. Never going back to Bruce Banner. Okay, so as we put the highlight on Chicago and the youth of Chicago And the drill scene that emerged, one of the first things that kind of jumped out to us is that, yo, where the grown folks at? And then they started telling their story. Oh, the grown folks is not here. They got washed up. They dead or in jail. And this is the result of what happens when there's no guidance. This is the result of what happens when there's no leadership. So they're like, what happened to the leaders? And then the world is introduced to the story of Larry Hoover and Jeff Ford, right? Ironically enough. And my observation of these individuals is I would always preface to speak about hip hop. I broke it up in two different eras. I speak about the 5-point energy. That's when it was being led under the influences of Islam. And I speak about the 6-point energy. And that is the energy that is, quote unquote, that was introduced that kind of encompasses Christianity, Judaism, for lack of a better term, right? And we'll see as we go along some other esoteric elements. But Christianity came by way of Catholicism, by way of Puff Daddy and Biggie Smalls in '93 as they introduced the Jesus piece in, and this crash commercialism, this metrosexualism, right? With this materialism, this like, oh, you wearing 2 earrings now, you got 4 chains on, okay. And of course, you know, the God bodies and all that, they had on truck jewelry and what have you. They had a lot of flash and fashion, what have you, but they balanced it out with information. This was the total, you know, denunciation of information and no consciousness whatsoever.
He says, right? Was firebombed. His Porsche was firebombed with a Molotov cocktail. And he says, Puff or Diddy was responsible for it. Cuddy says that his home, the place where he lays his head, the place where any man in most states, if not all states, is justified in shooting and killing whoever would invade my home because that's such a grievous offense. Cuddy says Diddy broke into his home. So Cuddy is saying that he was victimized in very serious ways by Diddy. He says that on the witness stand, Young Thug, who just got out of jail, Young Thug says, rebukes, if you would, Cuddy as a rat. And many, because we like Thug, and I'm an admirer of Thug as well. Many of us in hip hop culture and nigga culture agreed with Thug that Cuddy, because he mounted the witness stand and told of his victimization by this other black man, alleged, that he's a rat. For me, this perfectly illustrates how broken we are culturally. See, we have a different code in the Nation of Islam. Nigger culture says that this black man who suffers victimization by another black man, he's not within his rights to speak legally or otherwise on the victimization, his victimization by another black man. I know the whole no snitch, no snitching culture. So black people the rules of the code of nigger culture says that black people are to suffer victimization by other black people quietly. Because if we seek legal redress for our injuries, for our victimization at the hands of other black people, that we are violating a cultural code. That's the brokenness of nigger culture. And to me, what is coming out of the trial highlights how problematic, how dead our culture is. Another example. The witness Mia said that with all that Diddy allegedly did to Cassie, so all of Cassie's victimization allegedly at the hands of Diddy, when Mia said to Cassie, "Why don't you leave him?" Cassie's response, according to Mia, was, "Well, Jay-Z's already taken. Why would I leave him, and the other king of the culture is taken?" So she stayed, despite the alleged abuse and severe victimization. She stayed because culturally now our sisters covet the lifestyle of the rich and the famous, such that we, our sisters, are willing to make the deal with the devil. Our sisters are willing to suffer it all for the life. I can't leave Diddy. Hove is already taken. Who the other king is already taken, and of course I have to be the woman of a king, even if it comes at the severest of costs. The culture is broken. Hip hop culture, nigger culture is broken. It is the problem. And the extent to which hip hop culture and slash nigger culture is the problem.
Turn and face the strange. Occultist Aleister Crowley's influence on popular music, right? When the man who sold the world started studying the wickedest man in the world, an alchemical effect was inevitable. A megalomaniac, a poet, a mystic, a drug addicted, astute with multiple personas, and an iconic figure who hugely influenced pop culture. And so it was that David Bowie and Aleister Crowley shared some astral space. Aleister Crowley was a self-aggrandizing occultist from a puritanical Christian family who developed a thirst for outraging others early on. Adolescents of every generation want to overthrow the system and transgress. Only this decadent teenager that read Baudelaire and Huysmans was radicalized. He added a K to the spelling of magic to differentiate his own variety and went on to establish his own magical order of the Ordo Templi Orientis. However, the notorious Illuminatus poshboy would eventually end his infamous life of evil penniless in a post-war Hastings, his power seemingly gobbled up by the heroin that he was addicted to. By the end of his life, black magic was out of fashion. He couldn't get a gig, and no one wanted a Satanist anymore. Yet, as the decades that followed after his death faded into each other, and the original 1950s teenager made way for the revolutionary 60s, the teenager grew restless and began seeking more to rebel against. This unsatisfied generation was angry that the promise of liberty which modernity offered was not to be. Crowley's doctrine, do what thou wilt, started to ring true once more for a generation desperate for a new spiritual savior. Along with the beats, counterculture, and occult revival was imminent. Pop messiahs of the age ushered in the return of the beast. I'm going to repeat. Pop messiahs of the age ushered in the return of the beast. Crowley appears on Peter Blake's cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. A statue of him also appears on the cover of the Doors album, Doors 13. Mick Jagger was seen carrying occult books ahead of the Stones album, His Satanic Majesties. They cradled one of their most anthemic songs, Sympathy for the Devil. Both Jagger and Marianne Faithfull knew Kenneth Anger, the avant-garde filmmaker and Crowleyite. Jagger recorded the soundtrack to his film Invocation to My Demon Brother, while Marianne Faithfull appeared in Lucifer Rising. Hail Atlantis, intoned Donovan. Black magic became the new black magic and a Back to the Future return to old spiritual ideas. Crowley's career revival was on, and a comeback tour. Shit, crazy. Hold on. And the comeback tour secured. His call for a new world order beyond the conventions of society couldn't have been more suitable for the 60s libertarian culture of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The black magic machine was still going strong as the 70s dawned. In and of itself, this wasn't so strange. During this period, occult bookshops were springing up, and the children of the revolution were eager consumers of the mystic workshops that these shops peddled. This zeitgeist moment that held in the psychedelic aeon floated into the next era as pop culture continued the exploration of magic and mysticism. Even suburbia had a Buddha. He gazed a gazeless stare. Traveling from Maud to God, David Jones landed from South London to Planet Pop at a time when it was being choked to death by long hair, prog, and nodding wig-outs. Hungry for knowledge and otherworldly existences, through drapes of velvet and tapestry, to a jazz rhythm emerged Bowie. On a discovery mission, the fallen star devoured a cornucopia of experimental procedures, practices, and philosophies along the way, including, but not limited to, the occult, fascism, Nietzsche, Buddhism, yoga, mime, acting, astrology, the cut-up, and the drugs. Within this milieu, little wonder he should have found his way to Crowley, or perhaps Crowley had found his way to him. Bowie made no secret of his enthrallment with the dark priest that was Crowley throughout his career, frequently discussing the subject in interviews. As early as 1971, his occult adoration made its way into his songs, famously in Quicksand from Hunky Dory. I'm closer to the golden dawn, immersed in Crowley's uniform of imagery, but what is beyond? The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was a magical secret society that Crowley was a part of, and by 1904 he achieved top-level magus status by proclaiming to have made contact with a demigod called Ayahuasca in Egypt. And, okay, they tied in. So here's the Diddy parties that people are talking about. These are the all-white parties that made hip-hop what it was in the quote-unquote 90s and whatnot. Don't let nobody lie to you. Everybody wanted to be there, okay? This was where a lot of the people cut their teeth. This is where a lot of the quote-unquote celebrities were at. The white parties in the Hampton was the place to be. You did not turn down a Diddy invitation. You did not say, "Nah, I got other things to do." You know what I mean? Don't let Cat Williams even lie to you. Okay? Don't even let Cat Williams lie to you. Everybody was there, right? This is the era of ecstasy. As you can see on everybody's face, similar to how you'll look at things in the 70s and you could tell that they was all on coke. Well, they was all on ecstasy here. Okay? Look at homegirl from Sex and the City. Just the way that she's holding her head, that's the ecstasy hold, right? Everybody is eat up, you know what I mean? Look at Mary J with her old husband and whatnot, and his mama Janice Combs, Kim Porter, Howard Stern, feel me? You know what I mean? These are not the Diddy parties that he's on trial for. This is not the hotel room with the Punisher. These are the all-white Diddy parties. These are the, let's celebrate getting out of poverty. The fake illusion of it, right? You know what I mean? This is them commingling with the Europeans, the white boys. This is them commingling with the with white Hollywood. This is this nigga on Broadway. Remember, he was in Raising the Sun with Felicia Rashad. He was on Broadway doing Raising in the Sun and whatnot. And then they start doing these white parties in the Hamptons. That's Steve Stout, Jay-Z, Puffy, Andre Harrell, what's his name? Russell Simmons and whatnot, right? A lot of power brokering. That looked like Cassie, but I don't think that's her. You know what I'm talking about? They go to Little Diddies and whatnot, the baby Diddies and all of them. You feel me? You feel me? These are the baby Diddies and everything when they was little and shit, right? There go Cassie. There go Nick Cannon and Mariah when they was kicking it. There go Little Kim when she was going through her transformation and whatnot. But yeah, this was the place to be. Don't let nobody fucking lie to you, bro. Don't let nobody lie to you, bro. You know what I'm talking about? There's him with the twins. You know what I mean? And look at this. This chick with the schnauzer on her, right? Goddamn. You can't share no... That's down in Corinth. That's down in Karen, the original Karen right there. Look at her nose, though. Look at Al Sharpton. That's Chubby Al. Look at Aretha. Aretha! Mustard! All right, now, here's an article that I was referencing earlier from our good sister, Wendy, right? Shout out to Wendy if she's still here with us. This article was mind-blowing, all right? Mind-blowing. And once again, shout out to everybody with that good pen, man. All of the authors that are out there who know how to take a thought and turn it into some compelling stories, some compelling scripts, some compelling, quote unquote, something to read, all right? So the blueprint of betrayal, how Sean Combs and the Judas Effect commercialized hip hop's revolution. Hip hop was born in fire. Its earliest voices, the last poets, Gil Scott Heron and later Public Enemy, spitting rhymes like Molotov cocktails aimed at the pillars of white supremacy, capitalism, and systematic oppression. This wasn't mere entertainment, it was cultural warfare, a means of survival and resistance for marginalized communities. Y'all saw the video that we opened up with in the beginning of my segment and whatnot, where we showed you when hip hop was in its earliest stages and how it was, how it was being utilized to be the voice of the voiceless. It was the CNN, right? It was able to tell people, don't push me. I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Right? It was the voice of the voiceless. It was a ways and a means for our people to tell the whole world that not only are we here, but the conditions that we were living in while we were here and whatnot. Okay, it was cultural warfare. By the mid 90s, the revolutionary art form had been systematically gutted, repackaged, and sold back to Black America as a bling-soaked fantasy of false empowerment, a transformation executed with surgical precision. Right? All of that white party that I've just showed you, we'll get into it. Though what can only be called the Judas effect, the phenomenon where gatekeepers from within oppressed communities facilitate their own cultural exploitation for personal gain. I'm going to repeat that. The phenomenon, what can only be called the Judas effect, the phenomenon where gatekeepers from within oppressed communities facilitate their own culture's exploitation for personal gain, right? No figure embodies this betrayal more completely than Sean Diddy Combs, whose Bad Boy Records didn't just participate in hip hop's commercialization, but it weaponized it, turning what was once the soundtrack of resistance into a music of consumer capitalism. The Judas effect operates on a simple but devastating principle. Every revolutionary movement eventually produces its own betrayers, Judases, individuals who leverage their cultural credibility to make oppression palatable. In hip hop's case, this manifested as the systematic replacement of radical politics with empty materialism. Where Public Enemy's Chuck D once declared rap the black CNN, Combs reduced it to a PR firm for neoliberal individualism, right? Because the majority of those people that you see at his white parties, those were mostly liberals. Most of them were Jews and small hats in the Hamptons. Those are liberals. You had a few white Anglo-Saxon Protestants in the audience, but those are mostly the left liberals, Democrats, those fake liberals that act like they like you and whatnot, but they're really just redics and whatnot, sucking you, vampiring you, culture vulturing you, appropriating you, exploiting you, right? The transformation was both subtle and total. Songs about police brutality became songs about evading police during drug raids. Anthems about Black power became odes to personal wealth. Critiques of systematic racism became celebrations of surviving it. This wasn't evolution, it was co-option, and Combs became the most effective evangelicist. The mechanics of this betrayal revealed themselves in the Bad Boy blueprint. First came the erasure of context. Combs took the raw materials of Black struggle, the crack epidemic, police violence, economic disenfranchisement, and repackaged them as personal obstacles to be overcome through hustle mentality rather than systematic crimes to be dismantled through collective action. So he killed the revolution, right? He did not want to do a million man march. He did not want to talk about collectively how we could build our own industries, how we could be our own distribution. None of that conversation was coming out of his weird ass mouth. Only later on, he wanted to act like he was Black excellence in his fake ass woke facade and whatnot. But in his earlier days of selling this shit out, that's not what he was about. The song Juicy, Biggie's Juicy, stands out as the ultimate example, transforming the trauma of poverty into feel-good bootstrap narrative where the American dream remains intact so long as you're clever enough to game the system. Then came the aesthetic dilution, the shiny suit era. It didn't just make hip hop safer for white audiences, it made black success synonymous with conspicuous consumption, replacing dashikis with Versace and raised fists with champagne flutes. Finally, and most crucially, came the silencing of the alternatives. Bad Boys' dominance meant less airplay for artists like Dead Prez or Talib Kweli, right? What makes Sean Combs' case so emblematic of the Judas effect is how perfectly he served the interests of power while maintaining the illusion of black empowerment. The music industry didn't just tolerate Bad Boy's version of hip hop, they actively rewarded it because it turned protest into product without threatening actual hierarchies. While the FBI was busy surveilling and suppressing politically conscious rap groups, Combs faced no such scrutiny because his music posed no real danger to the status quo. In fact, it reinforced it, offering just enough black success stories to maintain the myth of meritocracy while obscuring the structures that made true equity impossible. This is the Judas effect in its purest form, using one's cultural capital not to uplift but to pacify, not to liberate but to more effectively exploit. The aftermath of this betrayal haunts hip hop to this day. The genre's global dominance has come at the cost of its soul. With the template Combs established, now is the industry standard. Trap music's glorification of drug culture without an analysis of the pharmaceutical industry's crimes. Drill's the fetishization of street violence without examination of the conditions that create it. The way record labels still push conscious artists to the margins while promoting the most self-destructive narratives. All of this traced directly back to the Bad Boy playbook. I shit you not. I've said this on many occasions. I'm so glad that we have a journalist who articulates it to perfection. This is chef's kiss right here, yo. This, I even asked her, could we turn this into a video essay? Because it's ready. This script right here is crazy. Like, this is a whole documentary. This could be a whole, let me calm down. I get excited. Even Combs' later ventures into activism and philanthropy ring hollow, resembling the Judas kiss of a man who made his fortune depoliticizing black struggle, now positioning himself as its champion. Perhaps the most tragic dimension Y'all all right? We almost there, y'all. We almost there. We are almost there. Okay. I know it's getting late. Why you wanna hurt me? Let me see. I was trying to share the screen. Y'all let me know when y'all see the screen, please. Are you able to see it now? You see it? Okay. Shout out to everybody that's still up. Y'all are legends, man. I wish I had some treats to give to you. You feel me? I wish I had some treats to give to you. The music's okay. Perhaps the most tragic dimension of the Judas effect is how it corrupts the very definition of success. Combs didn't just commercialize hip hop, he redefined what commercialization meant, replacing the idea of artistic control with brand partnerships, of community building with personal empire. In doing so, he created a paradigm where making it no longer meant speaking truth to power, but becoming power, the kind that thrives on the same exploitation that it once claimed to resist. The ultimate irony, this version of success has become so normalized that we barely recognize it as betrayal anymore. Oh my goodness. Man, amen. God damn it. Hallelujah. When young artists today pattern their careers after Combs' model, prioritizing venture capital over veracity, influencer deals over integrity, they're not just following a blueprint, they're perpetuating a cycle of cultural self-cannibalizing that serves everyone except the communities that hip hop was. Hold on. Hold on. The Judas effect's true danger lies in its ability to make complicity look like empowerment. Combs didn't force hip hop to abandon its revolutionary potential at gunpoint. Right? He didn't force the culture to he did it with the shiny suits. He made the abandonment seem like the natural, even desirable progression. That so many accepted this shift speaks to the effect's most insidious quality. It doesn't just exploit culture, it rewires collective consciousness, making oppressed people active participants in their own cultural colonization. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is, man, this is beautiful. When we celebrate Combs as a genius, as a business genius, rather than critique him as a cultural saboteur, when we measure hip hop's growth by market share rather than political impact, we become unwitting accomplices in the very betrayal we should be resisting. This is why reckoning with the Judas effect matters now more than ever. As hip hop turns 50, facing questions about its future direction and legacy, we must confront how much of its evolution has actually been engineered decline. The genre stands at a crossroads. The genre stands at a crossroads. Will it continue serving as a soundtrack to its own commodification, or can it reclaim its revolutionary roots? Answering this requires understanding figures like Combe not as outliers, but as case studies in how systems neutralize dissent, not just through suppression, but through seduction, not just through exclusion, but through selective elevation. The Judas effect reminds us that the greatest threat to any liberation movement often comes not from its enemies, but from those within who learn how to play the game all too well. In the end, the question isn't whether Sean Combs betrayed hip hop, it's why we ever expected anything different from a system designed to produce exactly this outcome. The Judas effect isn't about individual villains, it's about how power co ops resistance by rewarding those willing to sell its soul. Until we recognize this pattern in hip hop and in Black culture and every oppressed community's relationship with capital, we'll keep mistaking our betrayers for champions and calling our chains growth. The revolution won't be commercialized, but as long as the Judas effect persists, it may well be canceled. Damn. Drop the mic. And this is what we're talking about. If anybody is unfamiliar with the shiny suit era, right? The era that so many are talking about, this is it in living color. This is it in Technicolor. This is the Technicolor that Liar Cohen was talking about. This is the shit that was inundating big TV screens all around the world and whatnot. Okay? This is what people were like, yo, I want to be a hip hop. I want to get into hip hop. This shit right here. You know what I mean? Like, this is the shiny suit era. This is the things this is what the Locks revolted against. This is why the Locks wanted to get down with DMX, and they was throwing TVs out the goddamn window and threatening P. Diddy.